So if you look at the numbers, the Philippines is actually the fifth largest two-wheeler market on Earth. I mean, it's massive.
Oh, completely. It's a staggering scale.
Right. And if we look back just a few years to the pandemic, it was literally these little 125cc scooters that kept the local economy alive.
Yeah, they really did.
Deliveries, essential workers, running medical supplies, they were basically the lifeblood in the city.
It was a huge, a profound shift, really. The scooter went from being just, a convenient way to beat gridlock to an absolute, undeniable economic necessity for millions of people.
Exactly. And because of that scale, buying a scooter today for your daily commute is, well, it's like the highest stakes character selection screen you'll ever face in the real world.
That's a great way to put it.
You know, when you boot up a new role-playing video game, you have all these options laid out. Do you pick the nimble rogue, who's super fast but fragile? Or do you go for the heavily armored tank, who moves slow but takes zero damage?
Or the flashy bard, right? The one that looks incredible but might totally struggle in a boss fight.
Yes, exactly. It's a huge commitment. You're basically locking in your entire experience of the daily grind the very moment you hand over the cash.
You really are, and it can be super overwhelming.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We've pulled together like a towering stack of sources to help you, the listener, figure out exactly which scooter actually fits your life.
Right. We're looking at a lot of real-world data here.
Yeah, bustling Reddit threads over at RPH Motorcycles, detailed YouTube breakdowns from Motodeck and DDDYMR TV.
Some really great stuff on those channels, by the way.
Oh, for sure. And alongside that, comprehensive automotive reviews from Zigwheels, Yugamoto, and Commute. Our mission today is to just cut through all the relentless spec sheet noise.
Because the marketing jargon can really blind you to what matters. We want to understand the mechanics, the culture, and, what real riders actually value when they're staring down a grueling, traffic-choked commute.
Absolutely. So I want to start at the absolute baseline. Before we look at the luxury options or the highly stylized rides, what is the quintessential commuter? Like if someone just wants pure, unadulterated survival on city streets, what does the data say they should buy?
Well, across almost all our sources, one specific model just keeps coming up as the ultimate budget workhorse, and that's the Honda Beat.
The Beat. Yeah, I saw that everywhere.
Right. It's universally hailed as the perfect student or beginner bike because it's so small, lightweight, and honestly, almost impossibly durable.
The anecdotes from the Reddit threads had me laughing out loud, honestly. There's this overarching mythology about its toughness.
Oh, the running jokes are amazing.
Like one user joked that even if you pull out the ECU, like the literal computer brains of the bike, the Beat will somehow still run.
Right, which is impossible, but it tells you how people view it.
Yeah. Another user chimed in saying it runs on just the smell of gas. Obviously, those are jokes, but where does that reputation actually come from?
It comes from this engineering philosophy of absolute mechanical simplicity. I mean, yes, a modern fuel-injected bike does need its ECU to run, but that hyperbole perfectly captures reality. The Beat just has so few complex moving parts that very little can actually fail.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that smell of gas joke, it's totally backed up by the spec sheet. On the World Motorcycle Test Cycle, it hits an astonishing 58.2 kilometers per liter.
Wow. 58.2. That is incredible efficiency.
Yeah.
So what is the cost of entry for something like that?
It's highly accessible. I mean, you can easily find them on the secondhand market for under 40,000 pesos.
Really? That cheap?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes if you look closely, they drop as low as 28,000.
That's wild. So it's essentially the indestructible Nokia 3310 of the scooter world.
Exactly.
You could drop it down a flight of stairs and it would still send a text message. But, okay, if the Beat is the Nokia, our sources point to another bike as like the standard modern smartphone, and that's the Honda Click.
Right, the 125i and the 160.
Yeah. So what makes the Click the smartphone in this analogy?
Well, the Click is arguably the most common scooter on the road today. It's the practical powerhouse. The primary difference it brings to the table, aside from a slightly larger frame, is a transition from air cooling to liquid cooling. And it has noticeably more torque.
Okay, got it.
And if you opt for the 160 version, Honda gives you a 157cc engine, wider tires for better grip, and upgraded brakes. That one sits at a slightly higher price point, around 116,900 pesos.
Okay, I want to push back on that technology bump for a second.
Sure.
If the Beat is so bulletproof precisely because it's an air-cooled machine,
Yeah.
does the liquid cooling on the Click actually matter for a typical 10-kilometer daily commute in heavy traffic? Or is that just an upsell?
That is a phenomenal question. It really comes down to how engines handle thermal stress.
Okay.
Think of an air-cooled engine like the Beat as someone cooling down by just standing in a breeze. There are metal fins on the engine block, and as the bike moves forward, the air hits those fins and carries the heat away.
Right.
It's brilliant because there's no radiator, no water pump, no coolant lines to ever spring a leak. That's why it's so cheap to maintain.
But the downside is, well, if you aren't moving, there's no breeze.
Precisely. If your commute is purely point A to point B in the city, the air-cooled setup is totally fine. But if you frequently take longer trips or you carry a heavy passenger or, your route involves steep inclines, that engine works much harder and generates excess heat.
And that's where the liquid cooling comes in.
Exactly. Liquid cooling works more like the human body sweating. It actively pumps a coolant mixture through channels in the engine block, pulls that intense heat out, and runs it through a radiator at the front of the bike to be chilled. It keeps the engine at a very specific, stable temperature regardless of how hard you're pushing it.
I see. So it prevents power loss on hot days and improves the longevity of the engine internals when they under heavy load.
Right.
Plus, because the Click is the most common bike out there, parts are just ubiquitous. One Reddit user referred to it as a no-headache ownership experience.
Yeah, you're buying into a vast ecosystem. If you break down anywhere in the country, the newest local mechanic will likely have the parts and, the know how to fix a Click with their eyes closed.
Okay, so the nimble Rogue and the reliable all-rounder are established. But both of those bikes are built for utility.
Right.
What if a rider finds that utility exhausting? Like if your commute is 90 minutes of gridlock, you might actually want to prioritize comfort over raw survival.
Right, and this is where we move into the tank class of our character selection screen. And the standout model here is the Suzuki Burgman Street 125.
Oh, the Burgman.
Yeah, it's a fascinating piece of design. Suzuki basically categorized it as a maxi-scooter experience, but scaled down to a commuter level.
Maxi-scooters are usually those massive touring-style bikes you see on the highway, right? The ones that look like armchairs on wheels.
Yes, and Suzuki essentially took that bulky wide body and that expansive footboard, the one that lets you kick your legs out straight in front of you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and they mounted it on a modest 125cc platform, and they brought it to market for only around 83,400 pesos.
Wow, that's really aggressive pricing. But I have to bring up the internet reaction to this bike, because the Reddit forums are absolutely ruthless about the Burgman.
Oh, they are.
Users affectionately compare its shape to a literal toilet.
Which is harsh, but yeah.
And the most common nickname is Johnny Bravo, referencing the cartoon character. Because the scooter has this incredibly muscular, wide upper body, but it sits on a surprisingly tiny 10-inch rear wheel.
The visual proportions are undeniably polarizing. People are completely split on how this thing looks, and those proportions create very real trade-offs. You have a relatively small 125cc engine trying to pull a heavy, bulky frame.
So it struggles a bit.
Yeah, it means the Burgman suffers from sluggish acceleration, particularly if you're carrying a passenger up a hill.
And beyond the acceleration, that massive body paired with those tiny wheels leaves it with a really low ground clearance, just 160 millimeters.
Right.
Doesn't that make it an absolute nightmare for the deeply potholed streets and, aggressive speed bumps we see on daily commutes? Is the plush comfort of that big seat entirely negated by the harshness of the suspension bottoming out?
It sounds like a recipe for disaster on paper. But if we look at the engineering, Suzuki tuned the suspension specifically to compensate for the smaller wheel diameter. The internal dampening is set incredibly soft.
Really? So it actually rides well?
Yeah, the ride is widely reviewed as remarkably plush. But what's truly interesting is how the riding community actually tackled the ground clearance issue.
They didn't just accept scraping the bottom of the bike on every speed bump?
Not at all. Many owners head straight to a tire shop and swap out the stock rubber for slightly thicker, taller tires.
Oh, smart.
It's a simple modification, but it provides 3 distinct benefits. It raises the ride height just enough to clear those speed bumps. It provides a larger contact patch for better grip, and aesthetically, it balances out the bike so it looks far less like Johnny Bravo.
So it fixes the weird cartoon proportions.
Exactly. And once you do that, you get to enjoy the massive 21.8-liter underseat storage and an impressive 56.8 kilometers per liter on the EX version, all from a very comfortable riding position.
So if the Burgman is for the rider who values their spine, what if you view your scooter as an extension of your personal style? Like, you don't want utility, you don't care about the armchair experience, you want to be the flashy bard.
Well, the aesthetic choices in the market right now are just exploding. The most prominent trend is the retro wave. We're seeing models like the Honda Giorno and the Yamaha Fazio just dominating the streets.
The Giorno is stunning. I mean, it comes in at 101,900 pesos and delivers this flawless 1960s European vintage charm.
It really does. But underneath that vintage shell, it's packing modern Honda reliability and still managing an excellent 55 to 60 kilometers per liter.
And then there's the Fazio. On the RPH Motorcycle subreddit, the Fazio is heavily associated with what they call the UW boy aesthetic.
Great, the UW boys.
Yeah, it's incredibly popular with younger professionals and call center agents who want a cute, highly customizable look. It's like a whole subculture of matching pastel helmets and curated outfits.
It is a fascinating cultural phenomenon. In a heavily commodified space where millions of people are riding the exact same models of the Click or the Beat, the Fazio offers a canvas for personal identity. It's no longer just a vehicle, you know? It's an accessory.
But there is a catch. One actual Fazio owner on the forums explicitly pointed out that while the bike looks amazing on Instagram, it is fundamentally uncomfortable to ride.
Yeah, that's a common complaint.
Which makes me think, buying a retro scooter is a bit like wearing vintage leather boots on a hike. They look incredible at the trailhead, but you will be begging for some high-tech foam soles by mile 3. Does prioritizing a vintage aesthetic inevitably mean sacrificing ride quality?
Honestly, in almost all cases, yes. Form dictates function. When a manufacturer prioritizes a specific vintage silhouette, like a low sweeping rear fender or a perfectly flat seat, they often have to compromise on the internal engineering.
So they just don't have the space for proper shocks.
Exactly. They limit the suspension travel, they compromise the seat ergonomics, and they remove wind protection. You're essentially trading physiological comfort for psychological satisfaction.
Wow. But there is a counter movement to the retro look for the style-conscious rider, right?
Yeah.
The minimalist approach. Our sources highlighted the Yamaha Mio Gravis V2.
Yes, a Grav.
There was a specific story from a Reddit user named Soybeans who chose the Gravis entirely to avoid the ubiquitous look of the Honda Click. They rejected the aggressive, sharp, sporty angles that everyone else was riding.
The Gravis won them over with a sleek, elegant design. It has very few decals. It looks premium, matte, and understated. But Soybeans' decision wasn't purely aesthetic.
Right.
The Gravis offers a cavernous 25-liter storage space, which is remarkable for a non-maxi scooter. And crucially, it utilizes a traditional air-cooled engine.
That's the part that caught my eye. Soybeans specifically mentioned avoiding the liquid-cooled Click because they wanted to steer clear of the dragging issues that some riders experience with its transmission.
Yes, CVT dragging.
I hear that term constantly in these forums. How does a transmission actually drag?
So to understand dragging, we need to understand how a continuously variable transmission, or CVT, actually transfers power. Unlike a manual car with actual gears that interlock, a scooter uses a rubber belt and a system of centrifugal clutches.
Okay.
Inside the transmission housing, there are clutch pads made of a friction material. As you rev the engine, these pads spin outward and grab a metal bell, which is what turns the rear wheel.
Okay, so centrifugal force pushes the pads outward to create the connection.
Correct. But over time, as those friction pads wear down, they create a fine dust. That dust gets trapped inside the metal bell. Now imagine trying to sprint across a polished hardwood floor while wearing fresh, fluffy socks.
Oh man, you'd slip, shudder, and probably fall forward before your feet finally caught traction.
That is exactly what is happening inside the transmission. When you accelerate from a dead stop, instead of the clutch pads engaging the metal bell smoothly, they slip on that accumulated dust. They grip, slip, in rapid succession.
And that shuddering vibration traveling up to the seat is what riders call dragging.
Exactly. And while it can theoretically happen to any scooter with a CVT, it is a highly documented, frequent complaint in the Crick community. The Gravis owners simply felt the Yamaha setup was less meticulous to maintain.
Okay, so we've explored raw utility, plush comfort, and sleek style. But what if you reject aesthetics entirely because your #1 priority is simply keeping money in your bank account?
Always a major factor.
Our sources revealed a sleeper hit that redefines the concept of fuel efficiency. We praised the Honda Beat for hitting 58 kilometers per liter, but the YouTube analysis from Do2G Weimar TV highlighted a machine that blows past that. the Yamaha Mio Gear S hybrid.
Yes, the testing showed it achieving a staggering 62 kilometers per liter.
62 kilometers. How is that mechanically possible on a daily commute?
It comes down to fundamentally rethinking the power delivery. The Mio Gear uses a 125cc blue-core hybrid engine, but the magic is in a component called the Smart Motor Generator, or SMG.
Break that down for me. What does an SMG actually do?
Think about riding a bicycle. The hardest part, the moment that requires the most physical energy, is pushing the pedals from a complete standstill. Once you have momentum, keeping the bike moving takes very little effort.
Right.
A gas engine is the exact same. Accelerating from 0 to 10 kilometers an hour burns a disproportionate amount of fuel.
So how does the SMG solve that standstill problem?
Normally, a scooter has a small starter motor whose only job is to crank the engine to life when you turn the key. The SMG replaces that. It acts as a silent starter, but crucially, it also functions as an electric motor.
Wait, really? So it drives the wheel?
Yeah. When you twist the throttle at a red light, the SMG provides a brief, potent electric power assist to the gasoline engine for about 3 seconds. It's the mechanical equivalent of a friend giving you a firm push on the back right as the light turns green. By using battery power for that initial launch, it saves a tremendous amount of gasoline.
And it pairs that with a stop and start system, right? So the engine automatically shuts off when you're idling in traffic, and the SMG instantly fires it back up the millisecond you touch the throttle.
Yes. The seamless integration of those two systems is what pushes the efficiency to 62 kilometers per liter. And incredibly, Yamaha brought this to market at a budget price point of 81,900 pesos.
I mean, I see the appeal, but this raises a massive red flag for me. Adding electric assist motors, complex sensors, and hybrid battery arrays, doesn't that completely ruin the golden rule of cheap and easy maintenance that makes scooters so universally loved? Replacing a hybrid battery sounds terrifying for the average commuter's wallet.
You have zeroed in on the central tension of modern scooter tech. It is a massive balancing act between daily operational savings and long-term maintenance liabilities.
Okay, so it's a real concern.
Very much so. If you're a courier riding 100 kilometers a day, the money you save on gas with the Mio Gear goes straight into your pocket every single afternoon. That is tangible profit.
But the shadow looming over that profit is the eventual repair bill.
Validly so. A purely mechanical scooter like the Honda Beat can be fixed by anyone with a basic wrench set. But the SMG and the proprietary electrical systems in the hybrid Yamaha mean that out-of-warranty repairs will almost certainly require specialized diagnostic tools and highly trained mechanics. You're trading guaranteed upfront savings for a potential future headache.
Wow, speaking of financial headaches, let's talk about the danger of ambition. Because once you get a taste of the scooter life, once you realize how much money and time you're saving by skipping the bus or the car, it's so tempting to want more.
Oh, the upgrade bug is real.
You want more power, a commanding presence on the road, higher top speeds. You start looking at the 150cc and up bracket.
That bracket is where the premium options live. You have machines like the Yamaha Aerox, which is revered as a muscle scooter pushing around 18 horsepower. Or you have the Honda PCX 160, which offers limo-like comfort, sweeping digital displays, and advanced safety features like dual-channel ABS.
They look incredible. But we found a sobering reality check buried in the Reddit threads from a veteran user who owned both a 155cc NMAX and an Aerox. They issued a stern warning to beginners. Stepping up to this class completely upends the financial math of commuting.
Yes, that post was very eye-opening.
They estimated that keeping a 155cc scooter running optimally can cost 1,500 to 2,000 pesos a month, just in CVT maintenance alone.
That is a harsh awakening for someone used to a Honda Beat. But the psychological insight from that veteran user was really profound. It's not just that a larger engine intrinsically requires slightly more expensive oil or bigger brake pads. No. The true financial drain lies in what they termed the upgrade trap.
I love this concept. Buying a 150cc scooter is basically like buying a new video game console. The console itself is just the entry fee. It's the DLC, the extra controllers, the premium headsets, the constant stream of necessary upgrades that actually bankrupt you.
That is the perfect analogy. The veteran user strongly advised new owners to stay stock and avoid aftermarket parts entirely. Scooter engineering is a delicate ecosystem. With CVTs, everything is meticulously balanced from the factory.
Give me an example of how that goes wrong.
Okay, let's trace a hypothetical upgrade. Say you want to accelerate faster off the line, So you replace the stock roller weights in the transmission with lighter aftermarket ones.
Okay, so you get your faster launch. What's the problem?
The problem is the cascade effect. Because the rollers are lighter, they change how the drive belt moves. That alters the tension. Now the belt slips under heavy load.
Oh, no.
Right. So to fix the slipping belt, you have to buy and install a stiffer clutch spring. Because the spring is stiffer, the clutch pads are slamming into the bell harder, meaning your friction pads wear out twice as fast. One small, innocent modification inevitably triggers a domino effect of expensive, continuous replacements.
And suddenly your economical money-saving commuter is a relentless money pit.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean when we zoom out? Looking at the full spectrum of our sources, the overarching lesson is that there is no single best scooter. The idea of a perfect bike is a myth.
It really is. It entirely depends on matching the machine's specific strengths to the reality of your daily route and your budget.
Exactly. If you want raw, indestructible utility and mechanical purity, the Honda Beat is waiting for you. If you want to stretch your legs and protect your spine over potholes, the Suzuki Burgman is the answer.
Yep.
If you value minimalist elegance and a transmission that doesn't shudder, the Yamaha Gravis stands out. And if you want the absolute cutting edge of fuel efficiency, the Mio Gear Hybrid is king.
You really have to know your priorities before you ever look at a spec sheet.
Absolutely. But reviewing all these sources leaves me with one highly provocative thought. We just finished unpacking how Yamaha is using complex hybrid motors to hit 62 kilometers per liter. But at the same exact time, the sources from Yugamoto and Zigwheels mention that fully electric scooters are quietly entering the market.
They are.
They highlighted models like the NWOW ARZ, which costs a mere 34,000 pesos.
The landscape of urban mobility is really on the precipice of a dramatic shift.
So here's a question for you, the listener, to mull over on your next commute. Are we currently living in the final golden age of the simple gas-powered scooter? With complex hybrids maximizing every drop of fuel and cheap electrics threatening to rewrite the rules entirely, what happens to the legacy of mechanical purity?
It's a great question.
Will legendary bikes like the Honda Beat, the ones built so tough they supposedly run with parts missing, soon become obsolete relics in a digital, battery-powered world? Or will their unmatched, wrench-it-yourself reliability keep them dominating the character select screen of our cities forever? We'll leave you to think about that. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.